Hi everyone, this is Norman Kochnick. I'm here with obviously my channel Eyes on Cricket, and the game hasn't finished yet. We know that. Both Chris and I are here. In fact, Verner has joined me, and he's wearing the famous Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick cap, and looking very. Actually, the colour suits you.
Thank you. I'm pleased.
Well, I've got a few more things coming. They're arriving very shortly. We haven't got any viewers yet, which I'm not surprised because the game's on. But we'll talk. We'll let it start. The reality is that clearly New Zealand have turned the tables, haven't they, today? Immensely.
Yeah.
3 for 146. You would have expected. We were talking in the pre-game. In fact, I had Galton Bhattacharya, who's a very famous author and senior journalist, and he's probably one of the top 3 Indian journalists, and he rarely comes on, so it was a great honour to have him on. He talked with David Gravely about it. It was a magnificent little session. And the way that the Indian batsmen yesterday were batting out of the crease, negating any movement, was quite impressive, didn't you think? At least yesterday.
Yeah, I haven't watched much. I was obviously playing yesterday.
What Gill and Sharma did, they were particularly outside the crease well and truly, and were negating the full of balls. And it put New Zealand off the line quite a bit, actually. But it ended up being that, certainly Jamieson adjusted. But yeah, both Gill and Sharma batted quite admirably for their 62 before they got out shortly after each other. They were 2 for 69 at lunch. And Rahane and Kohli were looking very good. Yeah. Unfortunately, this morning it didn't quite go that way. Kohli went early, as you saw. We've seen Kohli went very early. Punt looked very. It was all at sea. Then a steady procession of wickets fell, and they were all out for 217, I think it was, from a 3 for 146. They lost 7 for 81.
7 for 71 today, I think it was.
Well, 81 actually. Oh, sorry, that's right. 7 for 71, which is a pretty ordinary finish, isn't it? So effectively, New Zealand started with 7 for 71. Jamieson was very impressive. He took a 5 for, as far as I'm aware. And since then, New Zealand have gone into batted with a great deal of confidence, which is impressive. Especially Devon Conway has scored his 50, and Williams is with him now. Latham looked good as well. Ashwin picked up the 1 wicket from the ball when went over to Kohli. Did you see that?
Yes, I did see. Yeah, no, it was a poor shot, really, wasn't it?
It was, but in the circumstances, they're 1 down for what looks like 101.
Yeah, I've got on here.
What a change! Because I think if you and I were talking this time yesterday, which we were, in the morning we talked, but effectively it looks as though. At that stage, India had an ascendancy at 3 for 146. Kohli looked goods on 44, but it hasn't quite gone their way this today. And it's a bit of a shock. Not a shock, but
I said before the toss that India have just got picked the wrong side. There's no doubt about it that they've got 3 seamers. The best swing bowler they've got is probably Siraj, and he's sat on the bench because they don't want to. In my opinion, they don't want to ruffle the feathers of the press. They want to pick 2 spinners, and it's shown. They're 50 overs into the innings, and Ravi Jadeja's bowled 2 overs. You don't need 2 spinners in England. New Zealand picked 5 seamers. It takes the pressure off Jamieson. The 3 big fellas for India here having to bowl the overs. It looks like they're bowling a little bit short. In the New Zealand guys pitched it up today. Probably bowled a little bit short yesterday. Pitched it a bit fuller today, and it swung a lot. And there was some technical flaws in some of the Indians' batting as well, isn't there? They're not used to playing in these conditions, and it showed. A lot were caught behind, caught on the slips, and New Zealand just showed how good they are. But as I said, at the moment, India have got a big problem with their side because without Hardik Pandya there, with that 4th seam option, they if they continue to pick 2 spinners, they'll lose the series to England. I have no doubt about that.
Now we're talking about the 5-test series.
Yeah,
against
unless we
England.
have an Indian summer, as we call it over here, where it's really hot and it spins loads. You need to have four seamers because it swings. As saw today, the pitch can look flat, and if the clouds come over or it gets humid or the weather changes, it can start doing all sorts. And the Indian seamers, particularly Bumrah, aren't as big exponents of swing bowling as a Southee or a Bolt, so they need to have the variety in that attack. And I really don't see picking two spinners is the right call at all.
Well, it's proven that way, hasn't it, so far? Ishant Sharma has been disappointing as well. He's been steady but not flash. And the reality is that New Zealand seem to be picking him off at ease. There's almost no swing going on, is there?
I think they just look like they bowled a little bit short. As I said, the New Zealand guys pitched it up today. The Indian guys are trying to hammer that good length, which in India, when you're trying to reverse it or nibble it off the seam is fine. But I think you have to. They talk about it, Anderson and Broad. You have to pitch it up a bit more in England. Get them coming forward, inviting the drive, and then if it swings, that's when it brings the slips into play, which the New Zealanders did very well. And expose some not great shots by the Indian batsmen, really.
So he's suggesting that they would not have, if they were to have picked another pacer, another seamer, you would have dropped either Jadeja or Ashwin.
Yeah, I think they have a problem with we spoke about it a lot before, with the balance of the side.
Yeah.
They need to have that all-rounder in there, which Hardik Pandya or someone like a Ben Stokes, that kind of Colin de Grandhomme, Shane Watson, Andrew Flintoff, Jack Kelly, they need someone in there that can bat and bowl some overs if required, and they don't have that in the seam. In India, you need a spinning all-rounder. Look at England, had a Moeen Ali, people like that. Whereas in England, you need a seaming all-rounder because it takes the pressure off. And I just don't see how three seamers in these conditions when, as I said, New Zealand have picked five seamers.
Yeah, okay. So who would you would have put Siraj in as the fourth seamer?
Yeah, I think so.
And he would have taken out, Ashwin or Jadeja?
It's a tough one.
That's the question. That's the difficult question.
I think in this test match, I would have taken Jadeja out because of the left-handers that New Zealand have in their top order. Go look at the clouds. I don't know if you're watching the same thing I am on the cricket. But I think that against England, I would not play Ashwin and play Jadeja. Let's face it, Ashwin's not been in the side always in overseas tests. I don't think he's played the first test in Australia. Or is that right? I think last time or the first time he was in England, he got dropped later on in the series. So they need to just make a judgment. And I said it's messing the side up, not having that all-rounder in the middle to balance, which what a Ben Stokes does, or what Hardik Pandya would have done. So
with the clouds that are there now, I reckon New Zealand will be off for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, could be.
Don't you? It's going to get very dark very quickly, and it may even start to rain. I think they'll be off within 5 minutes.
I think you have to ask if you're an Indian selector or fan, in my opinion. And it's the same. What would England do? If India should have looked at it and said, what would England do in this scenario? Are they going to pick two spinners or are they going to pick four seamers? So it's why New Zealand picking five. They've got two spinners in their squad. Ajaz Patel bowled all right in the second test at Edgbaston. So they should be sat there thinking, why are they picking five seam, not just four? Why are they picking five? What can we do? Surely they're thinking they know it's the conditions well. It's like playing at home. So why are we picking?
What would England done? Who would have England selected?
We might have put Leach in. We might have put Leach in, especially when Stokes is back. I think when Stokes comes back in, you'll see us playing a spinner like a Jack Leach. I just think at the moment, because Stokes is out, they had to just go in with the four seamers, and that's what it unbalanced the side. There's no doubt that England would have played Broad, Anderson, Stokes, and Wokes maybe, or Curran, or whoever, or Wood. They'd have played three main seamers plus Stokes as your fourth seamer, and then the spinner.
Lakshi's just commented. She's online.
Yeah.
The problem is our seam bowlers can't bat well. That's true.
It's not the job to bat well, though. It's the rave about Rishabh Pant played an awful shot. Rahane played a really, really poor shot. Ashwin came in and second ball backed away and tried to moose one over mid wicket because he thought a bounce was coming. Things like that. I don't know if you saw that shot, but you just think you're a number 8. If you're playing in that side, you've got to apply yourself. You've got those 7, 8, 9 in England are crucial because you can be 100 for 5. So, you can't be coming in and trying to have a whack at it. You need to try and apply yourself. You've got 5 Test hundreds. So,
okay. So I saw when I look at the Indian batting lineup and the way they went, Rahane's dismissal was atrocious. Even though he did score 49, that was an atrocious dismissal.
A few of them are just like Rohit Sharma, just like, and it's the same with the Australians here when they come, going hard at the ball. Rishabh Pant got a wide half volley that I think his front foot went down leg stump. They showed it. He literally planted outside leg and just had a slash at it. He won't score a run this summer if he keeps doing that. So it's a learning curve. These guys are very good players, but it's very different, and hence why. Look, when our batters go to India, we're useless because we're not used to playing in those conditions. So it's about adapting. The problem that India had yesterday, from the looks of it, was that New Zealand kept it so tight that India never got away. I think that Pujara 80 or 50 balls, and I think he hit 2 fours in a row. I think he was not. Kohli just dried up. So if you bowl 30 or 40 overs and don't go in for any runs, if you then lose 3 quick wickets, the game's not progressed from the batting perspective. So India
have got some going to be a result.
There should be. They've got 3 more days, haven't they?
Yeah, and the fact is they've almost not completed, but 2 innings as well and truly, underway here on a second day. So that should mean 4 days is enough. I cannot see. If India only got 217 in their first innings, albeit New Zealand are batting well now, I can't see getting more than 250 odd, to be honest, just because the way that the wickets will fall. They may get more, but they won't get much more. In fact, most innings will be below 250, don't you think?
Yeah. I saw a couple of comments on Twitter moaning about the pitch. Not moaning about the pitch, commenting on the pitch, saying that they've produced a non-spinning wicket. If you actually look at Ashwin bowl, a few balls are actually turning. Like that, it's turning a little bit. What people have to remember, this is a day 2 wicket in England. It's not going to spin much. It's not. No. It's not like in India where it's turning from ball 1. This is a pretty flat-looking wicket. This isn't a minefield. Looks like a pretty decent Test cricket wicket in England. So it's not going to spin till day 4 or 5 at best. And I just think India announcing their side a day before, I didn't get it. We talked about playing your best side, and I think that I disagree with you massively. You play your best side in the conditions. It's in India.
I mean, I'm not trying to defend what I said, but I still maintain that that's India's best option was to bowl the 2 spinners.
So looking now, you still think they picked the right side?
No.
Considering the best side in the world played 5 seamers.
Yeah, but okay. So you're saying the Siraj bowl, he would have made that. I would have bowled Siraj ahead of one of the bowlers that are there for sure. That was a mistake. He should have played in front of Ishant Sharma or Mohammad Shami, to be honest, or maybe even Bumrah. I don't want to say that they're totally gone. I mean, New Zealand didn't bowl that well yesterday either. They came good the second day when they had a good look at what they didn't do right, and they fixed it. So I guess there's one aspect of it. I just don't think that. I think it's New Zealand. Devon Conway's a significant figure here. Significant. Isn't he? He batted well against you guys, and he's batting well again. Clearly, he's had experience here and he's adapted, and he looks particularly good. He looks very well suited. He kind of reminds me of Rory Burns in a way. I think Rory Burns and Devon Conway are not all that dissimilar, are they? Really?
Yeah, he's got better technique than Rory Burns. He's a lot more compact. He looks the part, doesn't he? I mean, he must be thinking, Jesus, Test cricket game's pretty easy. I think he's only him and I appreciate it's a very small sample, but I think him and Kohli, the only 2 currently averaging over 50 in all three
Yeah.
formats of the game. So I think that's just the way that India can really look at the New Zealand guys here and just see how they play it. Williamson plays it really late. Look at the clouds. I don't know how far you are, but look at the great.
I'm looking at it. Okay, now, I'm watching Bumrah bowl now, and he's getting some decent purchase.
Yeah, it's just a little bit short though, Norman. If I'm watching the same, it's harder to nick it when it's back of a length. You want Williamson coming forward and driving. Look how New Zealand took all their wickets.
Yeah.
How many were caught behind, caught in slips? You need to push it up there. So I think,
but okay, just take a step back. After yesterday's performance, you can't be so damning with the way India played, because they played particularly well yesterday. They did
played
very well.
They played okay. They played fine. 140 for 3 is good, but you need to be better in the middle order. You can't, if every time you're 140 for 3 and knowing what the middle order is, exposing it, you need to be getting 350, 400 in England. They played fine. They played good, but New Zealand bowled very well and came out this morning. And, you're never in England, especially with the conditions like this. You need to start again. And it's a fairly, I don't think that they need, we've spoken about it before, that the chance that if India want to beat England over 5 tests, they have to outbat England. They have to match England's batting, because England will probably outbowl them. So they need to be better with the batting. They need to learn fast, because otherwise it's just going to be Anderson Broad pitching it up, nicking them off. And they're all good players. Don't get me wrong, and I think that India have got a very good chance of beating England this summer. But it's a good way to watch and learn. Watch Williamson, watch Conway, watch Latham. They play it late. They play it under their eyes. They let the ball come to them instead of going hard at the ball and nicking off.
Okay, go back to the tactic that they employed yesterday. Gill and Sharma batting well out of their crease. What do you think of that?
It's an interesting theory. They were talking about it, and they compared Latham and Conway, who bat further back in their crease.
Yeah,
and let the ball come to them, and then it swings. I bat out my crease. I think as long as you're playing the ball under your eyes, those clouds are fantastic, by the way. You don't see that in India very often, those clouds in the cricket game. Have you seen the cloud?
It's like a spaceship almost.
Yeah. It's just a technical thing. I think India are going to try and be really positive. But I think in England, it's not always the best way to go with the swinging ball. I think you have to play it late, let it come to you. You can't just come out and go hard at it. You have to be patient.
So Ross Entertainment, who's actually from Nepal, is saying, I think India is happy because they can muster a draw and with 100% rain. Now, look, that is, under the circumstances, it could well be a good result for India if they muster a draw.
So the forecast for Monday
is bad.
11 o'clock, 80-90% chance all day.
Which means it's going to rain.
Dry Tuesday, dry Wednesday. We've got
dry?
3 days.
Is it saying really dry?
Yeah, it won't rain Tuesday, Wednesday by the looks of it. So
okay, so that would mean effectively that they'll have borderline 4 days worth of play.
Yeah.
Which, the way it's going, that's going to be enough to win the match.
Well, as if New Zealand can, I guess they'll look to, if there's 2 full days after this, there's now 40 minutes left, they're going to be 140. If they can get a 150 run lead, they'd fancy probably bowling India out in 2 sessions if it stays humid and if it swings.
That was a good. Now, see, it looks as though both Sharma and Bumrah Sharma and Bumrah are starting to find their direction a bit more. They're starting to beat the bat quite a bit.
They just need to bowl a bit fuller.
Yeah.
They've been playing a missing all day past the edge, but because it's a bit shorter, they just need to be that little bit fuller.
So when you batted, what was it? Was it yesterday you batted? Or
Conway's out. It's a poor shot. Caught mid-on.
I must be on delay. I haven't seen it yet. Yep, he's been caught. Yep. Now this could be pivotal. This could, if they lose a few wickets here, it brings it right back to the field, doesn't it?
Agree. You've got to get Taylor early. I'd be getting who's your stump to stump. I'd be getting Jasprit Boomer on and getting Taylor at LBW because that's how he starts really poorly. You can get into New Zealand. Look at England. England bowled very well against New Zealand in the 2 tests. We were just poor with the bat, but our bowlers did fine. So if you can get into them, Nichols is pretty solid. But it's certainly not impossible to get into them. So they'll try and pick up a couple tonight, and all of a sudden the game is back in the mix. Really.
Well, yet again, India were 3 for 146. England are now 2 for 101. Not a hell of a lot of difference, is there? At this stage. And you could, and I'm pretty sure a collapse is imminent if they start to take wickets. So this is intriguing. This is becoming an intriguing match. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the New Zealand middle to low order is probably better than India's. Probably got more depth in terms.
Do you really think so? Who are you talking? So Ross Taylor hasn't been exactly playing that.
I'm saying the middle low order. If you're looking at Jameson,
the
Granholm, Jameson, Southey, Watling are probably better than Pant, Ashwin, Jadeja, and who's 8, Sharma. Not necessarily. I'm just saying in these conditions against this bowling attack, I'd probably back those 4 to score more runs than India's lower middle order at the moment. So.
It's very gripping, isn't it? Very gripping situation.
Oh, it's great. It's great cricket, yeah.
I think this is going to be an amazing match. I've got this feeling there's going to be a lot of twists and turns. There already has been. India batted well the first day. New Zealand bowled well the second day. We're in the latter part of the second day, and New Zealand batted well, and all of a sudden they lost a couple of wickets. The wobbles can start very quickly, can't they?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's just good to see. England will be watching this with interest. Obviously, we've got 5 big games against India to come. So
will England have Ben Stokes will be back? Is that right?
Yeah, he's playing at the moment in the 2020 comp, the Blast. He played today, so he'll be back for the Test match series for sure.
And Sam Curran and Wokes.
Yep, it will be full strength. Who's available? Archer and Stone are obviously now injured.
Stone's gone. No, Archer's gone. So that just brings Wood back into prominence, doesn't it? And Broad Anderson, of course.
Broad Anderson, Wokes, Wood, Stokes, Curran. It's Ollie Robinson. If I'm not talking about him, I'd be picking Ollie Robinson. A very, very good bowler.
So what's happened to him? Is he banned for long?
I think the ECB are pending an investigation. I don't know the full ins and outs. So I imagine that he'll be back and available for selection there. I guess the thing is they'll have to work out who they play. It might be that at Trent Bridge they pick 5 seamers. Depends on the weather in August. If it's been hot, they'll play Jack Leach. As I said, it's such a better side when you can balance it with Ben Stokes. You can pick 3 out and out seamers and a spinner. You don't have to just pick 4, 5 quick. So,
by all indications, the best all rounder in the game at the moment is probably Stokes.
Yeah, without a doubt, I would say.
But then, for an IPL perspective, he didn't command as much money as.
No, a different game. I think in Test cricket, and obviously in Indian conditions, you'd probably have Jadeja in your side, but generally in most conditions, you'd be taking Ben Stokes would be in your side, wouldn't he? Let's face it. With bat, he probably gets in with bat or ball. You can probably justify either. So, he would be in your side.
So if New Zealand now are bundled out for, let's just say, I'll be very, very hard under the 217 that India got. What does that make of it? What do you make of the game there?
Just looks like they're coming off, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good timing that we're on. So now, but what I'm saying is, okay, looks like I'd say bad light's gone now. They're gone for the day, don't you?
Yeah, I would imagine so. It looks pretty gloomy there, and it's 6:30. They probably would have been off now anyway, to be fair. So
yeah, so that leaves them at 2 for 102. You'd have to say it's evenly poised. You can't say that New Zealand got the ascendancy, I'm afraid. Even though they may appear to, you really can't. because of the way that the Indian batting lineup turned around their form, you can't discount that happening to New Zealand. So
yeah, but New Zealand are definitely on top and are definitely ahead of the game. And
you can't really say that until they pass the score of 200.
At the moment, they're on top, of course. So who's the happier camp? New Zealand are on top. They'll be miles. Kohli would rather be in New Zealand's position, and you can't. It's really difficult to say. Well, let's see, because New Zealand's batting could do the same. I don't see New Zealand losing 7 for 70 because for two reasons: New Zealand's batting lineup is better in England, and India's bowling attack isn't good. India's bowling attack is nowhere near as good as that New Zealand bowling attack. So, from both sides of both sides of the coin, I don't see it. It could happen, but I think more times than not, New Zealand are going to build a lead and have a bowl probably.
Don't you think it's frustrating that we've stopped both days for bad light, not for rain?
Yeah, that's just playing in England for you, isn't it?
So what do you think the solution is to bad light?
Well, they put the floodlights on, don't they?
Can you play? Could you flick on the lights and make it visible more? Is that what the issue is?
It do. I guess it's just makes it difficult, doesn't it? If guys running in bowling 90 mile an hour with a dark red, these aren't light red cricket balls, they're almost purple. Some of these dukes. Yeah, it's just a safety thing, isn't it? I'm gonna have to go, Norman.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. So where have you dinner yet?
Just at home with the folks, but yeah, I said I would come on for a little bit, but I'm gonna have to head off if that's all right.
Oh, well, that's a nice briefing. So I'll finish with the fact with you that New Zealand have ended the day at 2 for 101, with obviously the likes of Conway getting 54, just out Mr. Short Wallinger, Latham getting 30, with Williamson on at 12, and Taylor having only faced 2 balls. The bowling there, both Ishant and Ashwin have got wickets, compared to the India's innings of 217 all out. Rahani's 49 being the top score. Jamieson 5 wickets. Wagner and Bolt both got 2. So you're saying New Zealand is slightly in front. They would have to be, but they're not overwhelmingly in front. I'll wait and see the rest of the batting. So you reckon that's the end of the day's play, huh?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they come back out now.
All right, you can head off, Chris. Thanks for that. It was a good little briefing.
I'm playing in Oxford this week. I'm playing a 3-day game in Oxford at the Parks for the MCC. So I'll try and jump on where I can, but I might not be about. So
when's that?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday against Oxford University.
Right, but Monday you're available, but of course it's based on rain, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, give us a bit of a tour of Oxford if you're there.
I'll try and do something. I'll try and do something for sure. I usually do.
Cool. Even just take a recording of something what you're doing. So.
All right. Sort something out. Cheers, Norman.
Okay. All right, thanks, Chris.
Cheers all. Bye.
Ciao. All right, so Buckle Daly said, do you think whoever gets a decent lead in the first things gets bragging rights if it ends in a draw? I think they do. I think they do get bragging rights. Absolutely, they get bragging rights. The only issue is that if there's a win, the bragging rights mean nothing. It just means the game's won. The way it's going, the way we're going, even with the limited time of play that we've got, you'd have to argue that there's going to be a result, almost definitively a result. So, I think we're going to see some definite result-driven activity here. And I think that with New Zealand now, for those who've just joined us, New Zealand finished the day on 2 for 100. I think it's 2 for 102, and both Conway and Latham are out. Conway having hit a 50, 54, and Latham 30, with Williamson not out, I think it's 12, with Ross Taylor just having faced a couple of balls and duck. Of course, this morning the dismissal, unfortunately, at the start of the day was Virat Kohli, was caught LBW off Jamieson. Then Punt played, he played very steadily for a few deliveries, and couldn't hold himself back, and nicked it to second slip to Latham, I think it was. And Jamieson basically tore through the Indian batting lineup and took 5 wickets, as well as Bolt and Wagner both took 2. It was a very comprehensive bowling attack. Quite a turnaround from the first day where the likes of Southie was a bit raw, but Jamieson's come to his own today. He's taken 5 wickets and could well be a match-winning 5-wicket haul. That's fantastic. The fact is that the game is now, you would argue, well, it's not delicately poised. It's probably more in favour of New Zealand. because they only lost 2 wickets, but they could easily collapse. They could easily 3 and 4 and be back to a score up well under 217. So now Jameson's being interviewed now, and he looks quite smug, quite happy. He took off 22 overs. He took with 22 overs with 12 maidens. Jameson took 5 for 31. So that was a magnificent bowling effort. And really bowled well today. He bowled well yesterday, as a matter of fact, but he bowled particularly well here today and has thoroughly deserved the position. They're in 2 for 101, not 2, 2 for 101 after some 49 overs. Oh, that's a lot of overs for 100 odd runs. They certainly have nutted it out with just on 2 runs and over. It's certainly they've used the term player's been abandoned. No, it hasn't been abandoned. It's been called off for bad light, which it's rain would be abandonment. Bad light is just is they've gone off for that reason. Yes, it's a pity that both days have been called off due to bad light rather than true rain. But we've got a fair bit of cricket in here. If New Zealand can get a healthy lead or finish their total on the next 3rd day, that at least 2.5 days or whenever that's played, if they're needing that to get the other side out one more time. And I think if they have upwards of 3 to 4 days play, 3.5 days might be enough. You may see a result. I think 3.5 days will just do it. New Zealand won't bat long. And they'll try and go past the score or go very close to, and that'll put India in and heaping more pressure on them. So that's an interesting point. I think it's going to be very, very interesting indeed. But Jameson certainly is fit. He's young. He's tall. He seems to be able to handle the conditions. I'm sure we'll see him play more of him. And the fact they can rotate between Southey and Bolt. Southey hasn't quite got his act together yet. He's still got enough of the test there. That's another innings to bowl where he can easily shop and be that in that way. Again in the ascendancy. Jameson took the major 5-wicket haul. Of course, it was Saudi the first set. He took 6 against India. So they've got some power strength in it. And Wagner was a bit rusty early on. He seems to be doing okay now. And Bolt's ever present and has bowled well too, without having as much success. Like he had 2. He did take 2 wickets. But yeah, this is a very impressive performance there. So Southey was probably the most disappointing. But overall, India have shown that vulnerability in their middle order, which we didn't want to see. Jadeja, Ashwin went very cheaply. Punt went very cheaply. It wasn't what you would call the best of batting performances. All out for 217 is not a good enough score. And that almost tells me there'll be a result. If the best they can muster is 217, I don't think New Zealand's going to get much more than that, to be honest. I reckon they could be in for a low 200 score themselves. They might get 250, but that'll only lead to a situation where the other bowlers kind of try and do their bit. Wagner and, of course, the young buck there in spinner. What's the name of the spinner? The New Zealand spinner. Well, not spinner. Sorry, medium pace. They've got to Grantham, of course, as well. They're pretty significant, their bowling attack. Indeed. All right. Any questions, guys? Let's look at the questions here. Play has been abandoned. We know that. Well, it's not abandoned. It's been called off. Siraj for swing, he would have been bloody valuable. He would have certainly been valuable. It doesn't look like there was much coming out of Bumrah's hand, nor from Ishant Sharma. Sharmi, I haven't seen too much of his bowling. It looked okay though. Do you think the Indian with the rate we are on? If New Zealand keep batting with the rate, we will be only here for a draw. No, not necessarily. If they get they get 100 in front, they can put immediate pressure on England and New Zealand. They can put a lot of pressure on India, and they could well turn the match yet again. They turned the match in the session here this morning, haven't they? Leading into the second session as well, they've taken several wickets and put New Zealand somewhat on the back foot. There's no doubt about that. Certainly is. So New Zealand are going to finish for 201, so 115 runs behind India, which is not many runs, but a few wickets here or there might level it somewhat. So It's a bit early to call, but certainly New Zealand have gotten back, have arrested the advantage that India seemed to have in the first innings. Okay. Do you think that India will miss Bhuvi and Umesh? Well, not really. I don't know. Bhuvi might have been the one that may have made some difference, but I do. Siraj is another who is going to make a difference. They're genuine swing bowlers on this pitch. Well, yes, they would have made some difference. Bhuvi more particularly. Himanshu Singh says, yes, well said, Anshuman. Siraj does bowl with a lot of intensity, and the best thing about it, over and over, is he's disciplined as a monk. Keeps pegging away once it must balls both ways. Yeah, that's a fair point. I actually would suggest that Siraj would be in the side in front of I would have picked Ishant Sharma. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I don't know whether it's necessarily. I was discounting New Zealand big time yesterday. I thought, oh no, they won't get back from this position. What a great start by India, blah blah blah. Well, India have had the opportunity, and they've negated the movement again. They've done pretty well, and they've got themselves, New Zealand, that is, have got themselves on track. So New Zealand, both teams have, started their innings very well. Both teams have started their innings very well, but they've lost the wickets now. It's probably, unfortunately, a touch too early to know where New Zealand's batting's heading. But you would argue that they're going to struggle to get more than 250. If they do, well, they're going to win the match. If they can get more than 250 now, which means, say, 300, now 100 in front, that puts enormous pressure on the Indian batters when they go in for the third innings, and could well see India struggle and could well see India lose if that's the case. But if New Zealand don't get the 217 and India come out firing tomorrow morning, it could turn the other way. There is so many potential twists and turns. There was no doubt about the fact that we were talking in terms of India being in the ascendancy. Now we're talking New Zealand, but it could backflip tomorrow horribly. New Zealand could be all out for 150. Then what do we say? India got ascendancy. It's going to ebb and flow quite a bit. It's a magnificent match, actually. And even if though it's not going to be full 5 days play, we're going to be only needing probably 4 days the way it's going. To see some of what look like the England players. Okay. Do you think they're going to miss Mohammad Siraj match? Yes. I've got no doubt they will. New Zealand really move begins from now with Ross Taylor. The real movie begins. Okay. Are you saying, Manu John, this is where Ross Taylor will show his form? Because really, they've got Taylor and Williamson now. These two are pretty important. If India knock those two over, you're suddenly exposing their players. So it's another twist, another turn. There's been one twist where India were in front for most of the first day. They played particularly well. They were in front. The second morning, India lost wickets. New Zealand were in front. Now into the afternoon here, it's starting to backpedal a little bit more. New Zealand has lost a couple of wickets. It's not quite gone back totally to India, but it's probably 60-40 at the moment, New Zealand's way. Maybe 65-35, maybe, but I'd say more 60-40 to New Zealand at the moment, without a doubt. New Zealand will look to bat all day Tuesday and try to get India out on Wednesday. I'm discounting tomorrow at the moment, so I get that. Yeah, if tomorrow's out, it'll be Tuesday, and that means New Zealand will have to bat as long as they possibly can. If they can get a lead of around 100 and put India into bat on that day, if not the first part of the next morning, it could be a heap of pressure, which will be very testing, and which will mean New Zealand will be the main team to have a chance of winning. You're right. They won't even have to make them follow on. Of course, they won't have to make them do anything because they can just simply bat in order and allow India to go into bat third innings, which is second innings for India, and the strugglers in India don't make enough runs. It gives New Zealand an opportunity to finish it off or bowl them before they reach the total. It has turned from being in India's favour, like yesterday, to now more New Zealand's favour, absolutely. But the third day will tell all. If it's up to New Zealand to bat well enough to get 100+ lead, if they can't, if they end up getting less than the internal, it's back in India's court. It's like a tennis match. It's going to be going back and forth quite considerably. Again, I would argue that New Zealand have recouped some of the territory here and are in a pretty good position. They're still 116 runs behind, and that was enough to get India all out with only 77 runs needed when they played. So, yeah, I think that Devon Conway's out. That's pretty big. They're going to definitely have to get rid of Williamson or Taylor. Absolutely. That's where the key is going to be now, getting those two out. Especially because they're going to be batting both early tomorrow morning. We hope for the wicket. Yet again, well, actually, it won't be tomorrow morning. It'll probably be the Tuesday morning. It takes that long, which is a pity. They couldn't play another 10 overs under some better lights. DJ, they have in the test. They have in the past, as it is due to IPL, many don't know. I'm not getting what Munchie's referring to there. So DJ, who are you referring to as DJ? Oh, DJ Hip Hop. What did DJ Hip Hop say? Indians should play in England leagues and Aussie leagues. What's with the BCCI? What are they thinking of upgrading your players foreign style? That's a fair point. And I think that your reply, Munchie, was they have in the past. It is due to the IPL, many don't now. That's probably a fair point. They're committed. They're actually assigned to the IPL, and that's their priority. So they can't really prioritise other short versions along it, unless India were to obtain a side in the England comp or Australian comps. Then that would probably open it up, but that hasn't happened. Bumrah's not a swing bowler. We know that. Shami certainly is, and you'd have to argue Sharma can use the book as well. So Indian players have played well in the county cricket. They have. And Vihari has batted well enough in those conditions. Even though he had a couple of low scores, he would have got a lot of experience from that performance. There's no doubt. Right, India do not have the culture. New Zealand have never gone for promotional team selection. That's why they are typically tactically so good. So you're saying, Himanshu Singh, that the Indians do not have the right culture and have never gone for emotional team selection. That's why they are tactically so good. Okay. So Munchie was saying they loved having Dravid there when he was at Kent. And Dravid's a very good tactician. He's going to do a lot of good with the under-19s and probably will be good for their futures. Go back and say Siraj should have been picked ahead of Bumrah going by reputation. Yeah, I have to say that I think Bumrah wasn't the most cleverest of selection, and Siraj's form warranted him being in the squad, or at least the team. Kohli is walking back out on the field now with, I think, Ravi Shastri in tow. Ravi Shastri and Kohli are very thick now. They're very, very thick, I think. India really outplayed New Zealand in today's last session. India really outplayed in the last session. Yeah, well, they did. They've brought it back a little bit, having taken the wickets of Latham and Conway. Pity they get more of an opportunity to have a go at Ross Taylor and Williamson later on today, but they will tomorrow morning, and that's going to be crucial. They can knock off Taylor and Williamson, as did New Zealand knock off Punt and Kohli today, and ultimately Rahane. They could do a very similar job. It's like you could almost predict the next day that will be very similar today, but in reverse. New Zealand batters will go back out, and the Indian bowlers will have the tails that will really go for it and hopefully take wickets and take some good catches and make everything match up tremendously. All right, so let's have a look at the batting for a moment. Both sets of openers did very well so far. They didn't go on with it, but they did well. I mean, Conway got 54 and Rahane, although his second drop, got 49. Both Sharma and Gill did very well, but they negated the bowling quite well. But they still lost their wicket when it counted the most, which is unfortunate. You'd argue that New Zealand had the opportunity to have a good look at the way India batted and the conditions that they've experienced, and perhaps been able to make some loaded choices. So, I mean, jokingly, the music they have, that's certainly relevant. They were very relaxed in their nature. They weren't stressed at all. Probably the only one that had any stress was Richardson. Obviously, no, is it Richardson? Oh, now I'm getting my names mixed up. Well, you got Williamson, of course, and you got Jameson, not Richardson. Jameson. He, to me, he looked the most relaxed out there and changed his line length certainly from the first day to the second, and took further wickets, taking some 5. So it was quite a dramatic change. Being the top two sides, the game is always going to ebb and flow. It certainly will. You're right. That's right, much. It is going to ebb and flow. Well, it's already flowed into the hands of India in the first day, then quickly in the next morning to New Zealand. Then you would argue somewhat towards the back end of the day, India gained some ground, having taken 2 wickets, and now can realistically say we've got a chance of knocking him off well below our 217 if they get their act together early, which is up to them now. What do you think about management saying that they want to take this out of the equation with selecting the team in front? It's a crazy statement. Well, it isn't, is it? We don't want to be perceived to be taking the conditions into play. But what they're saying is they neutralise what they've done. Look, if you look at the physicality of Shami and Jadeja today in the practice, they both played very well. They look very good. So it's a very good selection to have. Of course, Shami playing. Jameson is on the other side, of course. They've got Coley. Well, he doesn't bowl, but more so. Bumrah didn't look too. Bumrah wasn't bad. A little bit short, but he was getting a fair bit of cut and movement there. He certainly wasn't a bit of swing. Bumrah's performance was pretty admirable. But the standout was certainly Jameson, the first things. And he's their secret weapon, I would have to argue. Very much their secret weapon. All right. They should have played Bumrah his white ball and an over bowler. What do you think? Yeah, Suraj should have played. Would he have played at the expense of Bumrah? No, I want to drop Bumrah for the bowling of. No, I wouldn't have dropped. I would not have dropped that player. I would have had Matt Henry should be coming into the side. I really think about that. But no, what were you saying? The way that Shami is going to bowl, has been bowling, has been pretty good. Ishant Sharma certainly instead he had a bit of movement, but the way that I'm seeing Saudi and bowl is certainly more superior. More so Bolt and more so Jameson. Okay, let's go to the other side. Let's go to India for a moment again. Bumrah was not bad. He didn't bowl badly. I didn't see enough of Sharma to really judge how he's bowling. Ishant bowled admirably as well. But the spinners were a little bit disappointing. Both Jadeja and Ashwin were a little bit disappointing. A bit too pedestrian. They didn't really have any impact. New Zealand seemed to negate them pretty well. So early stages, but it doesn't look great. I mean, both Ashwin and Jadeja may come with the goods in the second innings. Just be wary of that. Parfit thinks it's going to be a draw with the presence of rain. What do you think? I don't want to say that at this point. I still think there's enough play in here to have a result, and we're going in that direction. FYI, Stokes was back playing for Durham today. Yeah, Chris told us about that. Bumrah had an advantage early with his awkward action. Now batsmen are getting used to it. Yeah, there's an element of that. Yeah, there's an element of. I don't know whether the injuries had early this year has perhaps brought him back not as potent. You know, he's not as deadly as he was earlier on. He got married this year. He's had injury problems this year. It may well be that he's not at his venomous best. Okay. I don't know whether I'm waiting on some people to turn up. I'm waiting to see what they do. Yes, it's not a promising situation. What is your prediction for tomorrow? At the moment, by what Munchie has said, I would argue that there'll be no play tomorrow. Is that right, Munchie? There'll be no play tomorrow. That's why. Do you think Williamson will get past 50 tomorrow? Well, at this stage, you would say yes. I also, at this stage earlier on, was saying that Collie was going to get 100 on 44. He lasted 2 or 3 balls, so you can't say with any confidence. This wickets can go very quickly. Heavy rain is predicted for tomorrow. Exactly, that's true. Tomorrow looks like a washout. That still leaves effectively 4 days of play with almost 2 covered, with 2 to go. All that means is that New Zealand have to come out thrashing on the next day of play, which will probably be Tuesday. And then with that lead that they hopefully will get of 100, let's say New Zealand get 100 lead, let's say, then India have to get 100 at least to make New Zealand bat again. That's where the game becomes very tough. And New Zealand could easily get India out for a low score again, leaving their team with a moderate total, and we could see a victory in New Zealand. I hate to say this, but it's starting to look like as a New Zealand fan. But if India come out tomorrow and take 5 or 6 wickets very quickly, and New Zealand are less than 200 runs, putting the Indian team ahead, that gives them a mental ascendancy, and that could be enough to sway the other way. It is a bit of a pendulum going on here. Let's just see how New Zealand finish off their innings, and we'll be able to see what scores are left from there. Then we'll be able to judge it. If New Zealand go well ahead, well, then they've put themselves in the box there to at least be able to play for a draw. Do you think which team will be happier to hold on to draw from here? Probably India, but I don't think either team are going to be happy to draw at all. I think they're going to really be frustrated. They're going to want to win. Which length is the best for this pitch? What do you reckon? Well, the length of the pitch was the length of the pitch. The dimensions of the pitch don't change. You talking about where they're bowling? Certainly Fuller. Both wickets certainly were claimed. All wickets have been claimed basically on the ball being pitched up. Himanshu thinks, of course, India. Yeah, I would agree with that. All right. Any other questions, guys? Tomorrow, India need 8 wickets on day 4 by lunch session. If they can get 8 wickets that quickly, India's definitely going to win the match. Zara Tara, best way to get 1 million views, the roast of Chris Verner featuring Alan Mullally. That's funny. I'm sure both those guys would not like to hear that, but that's probably it's a fair call. I'm going to record that. That's rather funny. Where was that? Okay, it's been recorded. Okay. What else we got here? What happens is it's a draw. They will share the title. And on what a lethal bowling attack by Kiwi bowlers especially Jameson, yes. And what an outstanding batting by Conway. Well, yeah, he did well. So did some of the Indian batters. They both got starts. Just amazing. Kiwis are in the driving seat. So 3-3. Well, they are to an extent, yes. Why do you think Sharmi is unable to take wickets in England despite of bowling in a very different manner? Well, he hasn't taken them today, but he's still a very dangerous bowler. He's probably the best exponents of swing and movement that India have. The kind of purchase Ashburn and Jadeja got today, Kiwi certainly have a task ahead of them to going into the last innings. Yeah, there was a fair bit. They negotiated pretty well. It was a slow turn. It was a bouncy turn. Yes, it was slower. And even when it came to the batting side of it, New Zealand batted further back in their crease and let the ball come to them, and they played that pretty well. Zara Tara's now kidding. Okay. Conway played just how Coley played yesterday. High, right under his eyes, normally had a faster bat, with a better strike rate. Just played as needed. Amazing. Yeah, there's similarities. But Coley is better, I would argue. But Devin Conway's a long way to go, but he's certainly going in the right direction, that's for sure. You can certainly commend the way that he's playing. Well, he did go 54, didn't he? That's a pretty commendable batting performance. Rahane got 49, so he wasn't far behind. Yeah, Rahane quietly went about his business yesterday, and even today, wasn't bad. Too late, Zara. I've told Chris. Okay. Yes, one hand and a few fingers on the other hand as well. I'm not sure what that was all about. Starting your show a bit after the game will get you more viewers. Well, it hasn't, to be honest with you. I mean, to be honest with you, we're probably got more viewers later because everyone's on now. All the channels are on now, and we're competing with all the channels. If we go an hour or so later when everybody's cooled down, we get large numbers. And that's no, I don't agree with you. I think we're competing with numbers. It's like everybody's running onto the bus at the same time, whereas in my case, we'll let the buses go, but there'll be still a few buses to come later with another batch of people at home joining. So what do you think about the dismissal of Rahane? Well, it was a poor shot on Rahane's part. He shouldn't have played that shot. He was set up. Clearly, Wagner was setting him up, and he fell for it. New Zealand batsmen now, India have only 3 seamers. Bumrah off colour, so they can tire out the seamers potentially. But New Zealand are not quite home and hosed yet. They can't be so smug and be so certain. Garabak, I think it's a bit early to be saying that with that sort of conclusiveness. I don't know whether that's necessarily right. Actually, guys, this is not my best time slot. Best time slot is about an hour later, I would argue. People aren't used to seeing me at this time. Yeah, the people watching the post-match on TV, once the shows are over, they come here. Yep. Once the shows are over, they will gladly shift to the Norman channel. The Norman channel, I like that. All right. So, any other questions, guys? It's now 4 o'clock. That's exactly what happened. Kiwi bowlers bowled well. They chose spinners, and they justify that decision. What New Zealand spinners would have been easy runs for India, they cut the out option. Yeah, I do think that is right. Only diehard Norman fans will come on during the game. And some did. I must say I was pretty happy with it. We thought we just started, because in fact, the main reason why I started earlier was I did say 3 o'clock on my timing. I expected the game to be finished by then, but also Chris Verner could come on, and we had a valuable half an hour or so together, so I cherish that. So New Zealand are 116 behind. It doesn't sell that many runs because they've only lost 2 wickets, but it can change very, very quickly. Munchy, fingers crossed for the weather tomorrow. We'll check the forecast for you. Time for dinner now. Bye. Okay, are you eating with the Verners, eh? Do you think the match would have panned out any differently if there were a rule was like whoever gets first innings lead wins? So what the rule was? It's used. No, that's not Test cricket. You can't do that. Would have been diabolical, do they? They wouldn't have done that. Seems to be a rain out day tomorrow. Yes, that's right. Which we probably will see everything pressed onto both the Tuesday and the Wednesday. What's my prediction tomorrow? All rained out. If there was no rain, though, I'd predict that New Zealand would get some runs, but they wouldn't get necessarily the amount of runs they think they would get. Imagine if New Zealand gets 220, so they're only a handful of runs ahead. Well, then no one's got the ascendancy, then, have they? It's all together the same. Okay, who got that comment? I'm just trying to read that comment. HC Legend on what's your view on New Zealand middle order batsmen against Indian bowlers? Well, Chris reckoned that New Zealand middle order is better than the Indian middle order. Well, on paper they're not. Punt, Jadeja and Ashwin Jay's with triple hundreds at domestic level, 3 of them, and Ashwin's with test centuries. And we know how good he is. That's not worse than Nichols, Watling, and de Grandhomme. I'd say they're pretty much an even par. Watling, even though he's been a great batter throughout the years, it's his last test, and he's not necessarily in great form. De Grandhomme can play very well, yes, absolutely. Nichols is steady, so I would argue that they're very similar. I don't think they're necessarily much better or worse. Do you think India should have played with 4 seamers? We're changing very quickly, aren't we? We're not really letting this match settle. I'll wait until I see the end of the test match before I'll judge that one. See how Ashwin and that bowl in the last innings. Do you think India batting is likely going to be better or worse than 7 innings? Well, at this, Indian batting will have to be, you'd hope it'll be better, but if it's not, it's going to be pretty low in scores. They scored 217, don't forget. That's a low score. In fact, I'm arguing no team that follows now will get more than that. And I think even the New Zealand total, even though at the moment they're 2 for 101, they could easily lose quick wickets and be even behind the 8 ball more than what India ended up being today. So, Zara Tara, one of your best segments is the newspaper analysts from coffee shops. How's LG Media covering this test match? Good question. I'll do that one probably the next few days. Absolutely. They're interested. Certainly, there's a lot of interest because a bit of discussion about Australia we should have made it. No, that's rubbish. But more the newspapers so far have been around a lot of other sports really, and cricket's not as the only importance was given around the COVID related activities. Whether Australia's going to, with an eye on the Ashes coming up, they'll be watching England India series with great anticipation to see how England play and any tactics they can gain from that. They're certainly interested in the World Test Championship. Undoubtedly, it's the pinnacle, so they'll be watching it definitely. There's not a lot being said at this moment. We might get a bit of press tomorrow. I'll have a look. Virat's wicket was crucial. It certainly was. So it happened so quickly and so early. It was rather unfortunate. And then that gave Punt not a lot of momentum on today's play. Had Kohli and Rahane batted longer, that was crucial. Losing Kohli early was very, very crucial. That's very true. It was a very crucial moment. Nitesh Badwaj, I would agree with you totally on that one. I think it was a crucial moment that they didn't have, that Kohli didn't get a chance to bat. His LBW was out though. His LBW was certainly out. So there's no question about that. He was out. I'm just trying to get this up here. What makes your channel unique is the various locations from which you cover the news. Coogee Bay, Coogee Shops, rugby league stadiums, your own home, and give a sense of the cricketing culture in Oz. Thank you, and I'll continue to do that. Why do you think Indian bowlers have not been able to move as much as the Kiwi bowlers have? Which 5 bowlers do you think look the bit most dangerous in both sides? Well, one reason why they're not pitching it up, and I think that's the lesson the New Zealand line after the first day. They're not pitching it up. They're not letting the ball do the work rather than they're not forcing the issue. They're forcing the issue a little bit of nervousness there too. Jadeja and Ashwin probably could use a bit more flight, but there's not a lot of spin there, but still they can use a little bit more flight, tempting the New Zealand batters. Regards to the 5 most dangerous bowls, well, definitely Jameson, Bolton, Southey. I still can't. Even Wagner, it's hard to not include all 4 of them, to be honest. And from an Indian perspective, certainly you'd have to include Shami and to an extent Bumrah. How would you rate the quality of the broadcasters game? Well, it's a bit thwarted because, of course, they're not fully staffed. Media aren't engaging quite. They've got this distance rule, which I think is silly. If they've been all tests, they should be able to stand closer together. Do you think Bumrah does not done well today? Well, towards the end, he got a few balls to move and beat the bat, but that was, as I think most people were saying, a bit too short. And the batsman had a lot more time to see what was going on. Indian bowlers have been able to keep the scoring rate low have to give them credit for that. Yes, certainly. 2 wickets in the first 2 hours tomorrow, it's game on. Yep, exactly. So we could easily say after yesterday's match, India looked like a great deal of someone looking at 300. Well, they got to 11, and the match turned very quickly around because New Zealand had learned from the first day and bowled better lines and lengths. And then this next day, India could learn a lot from watching the videos and bowl more of the same, pitched up to the Indian batters and perhaps get them out a few wickets out. That's certainly on the cards. Jamieson got almost 2.5 degrees swing when bowling, but India paces Ishant got an average of 1.5. What went wrong with Ishant? Maybe he's trying to hit the deck a bit too hard. I think he's trying to hit the deck too hard. That doesn't help. Even though Jamieson usually hits the deck pretty hard, I think he softened that side. He was a lot fuller. Jamieson bowled tremendously well. He really, really bowled well. What a talent he is. Shashank, or is it? Someone's comment just come up. Shashank, hope tomorrow's first half India get two wickets. At the moment, looks like no play. When do you see yourself next having the opportunity to visit the stadium to cover a game, given the COVID restriction? Here in Australia, it'll be next summer. We'll have Afghanistan test and the whole five test Ashes series and probably some other T20s. So not far in Sydney at least. In India, not under 6 months. In UAE, it could well be the same. Well, it's going to be interesting where they play the World Cup. I think it's going to be very crucial. That's going to be very. If India get to do it, it'll be a coup. Even with, let's take a step back. I think the World Cup will be held in UAE. That's the likely situation. That's where it's going to be. When it comes to the IPL, that's another toss-up. It may well be UAE again, but India are really pushing to have it at home. That 31 matches condensed. Well, that'll be interesting to see whether they can pull it off. And that's a real damn shame that the IPL now is in the middle of all this because it's going to be so squished. Not first 2 hours, 2 or 3 wickets in the first 10 to 12 overs. So potentially an hour and also curbing the runs at the same time. Fair enough. Is that tomorrow, I'm guessing? Who was Chris Verner's pick of best Indian pacers today? Well, he wasn't that impressed with. He was talking more highly of the New Zealand bowlers, put that way. He did think that the spinners would be ineffective, and he said that it was proven to be. That's one of the things he did say, and he said Bumrah's capable of doing better and looked okay, but both Bumrah and even Shami and Ishant looked good with the bowling too short with the amount of movement. They weren't allowing the movement to dictate turn ball. When it's shorter, of course, the ball does still move, but it gives more of a chance for the opposition batsman to work it out. So, yeah, fuller, slightly slower, and would have been better. So he wasn't very happy with any of them and really didn't see a lot of penetration from them. Zarate was running a lot of stuff there. Hope next time none of the ICC tournaments should be in England as in the World Cup. We also face rain again in the Champions Trophy and now WTC. Yeah, but I'm not discounting England because it is still the home of cricket. It's where the traditional home is. It's understandable why we use it more often than not. It's quite middle distance from all the countries involved, actually, too, from America through to Europe, as in Caribbean, and even America itself is certainly a middle point. Maybe UAE is a more long-term situation. Playing in England, being a World Cup of sorts, is not a bad thing. All of the World Cups started in England, so I can understand why you would follow that routine. That's not necessarily a bad thing that they did that at all. So no, I don't think there was a problem with that. Okay. Mate, it's 4 a.m. there in Australia. Yes, you're right. New Zealand collapse loading tomorrow, yeah. But that logic should also, all major rugby league claims be held in England since the game originated there. No. Well, that's that's rugby league playing for Australia is a different sort of rugby league being played in Australia. Playing for Australia, where you play international venues such as England. Playing within Australia, no, it doesn't have a big no. I don't. You're not. That's not a good comparison, because rugby league played in Australia is because it's the Australian version of it. It's for Australia. We're not playing against England in that, but we do play a World Cup in so-called rugby league terms. Absolutely, the World Cup is Australia, New Zealand, India. Not India. Australia, New Zealand, England, perhaps. I think Scotland, but Ireland put in teams. America's put in a team. There are a number of Caribbean teams that have been put ahead too, as Barbados or St. Lucia or those countries, which they're countries. Those islands are countries. So yes, they would. So there was more of that going on. So yeah, I think we've already had that started. But that okay. Will New Zealand miss a spin on the third innings? No, I don't think they're going to miss a spin. Their paces have done the trick already. At this early stage, they've done the trick. So no. If India had dry conditions and not batting well, then they probably would. But in those conditions, I'm pretty sure Tracy would have definitely selected or would have thrown into the hat Siraj in the team. Would have, and it was very clear that his name Kohli approved it. He wanted it. He was actually keen on having both Shami and the person's name. Shami and Siraj certainly in. Absolutely. And obviously Ishan Sharma, but then Bumrah, Wagner, that's four already. And having the fifth bowling option of one of the two spinners, Jadeja or Ashwin, would have been the right selection. So they may have made a mistake with the batting order of Frank, maybe at third last of the batting should have been put in there, perhaps or higher. Because he did always talk about his wicket taking of, I think it was Kohli. He made a point of saying that. So if we're going to find a position for Frank Maley, give him a couple of seasons of playing domestic cricket in Australia full time, and we'll see how he goes. He'll do all right. I think he'll do all right. All right. We're missing Ayush Jain is missing Siraj. I agree. Rishabh Gupta, don't you think India should have Siraj and KL? No, not KL. I don't think there's nothing necessarily going by not having him in the side. Siraj may be the only one, and he's very much in the mix. New Zealand are the favourites to the World Test Championship. Well, they are ranked first at the moment in this game. They've got somewhat of an ascendancy. We'll just wait and see. If New Zealand can get 300 or more tomorrow, then they're in charge big time. They can really heap pressure on India. But if they stumble out for 140, well, it's game on again for both teams, and hopefully there's a flurry of wickets falling for the third and fourth. We get a result, and not necessarily think India will be the ones to win, but I think it would benefit them if they did that in their tactics. But having Punt there, it will be interesting. Very interesting. All right. Couple Verner said something. What did she say? The way Team India's batsmen were getting upset in the last series against Colin Emerson, the same is being seen in this WTC final as well. So what game plan should be made against Kyle Jameson? Well, they negated him pretty early on. Gill and Sharma looked pretty good. They spent time outside the crease. It worked. Getting to field a lot more too. Yeah, it's like overfielding. My predictions are again. Heart says India, head says New Zealand. You work out who's going to win that one. The video has gone to publish, but it has been published. We're still live. Yeah, we're still live. Okay. Krishna Sah says, I know it will be New Zealand 100%, but still heart goes out for him, but no chance that India is going to make it. Well, yeah, it's still a little bit early. So, my life fellow, how are you? I'm great. Even New Zealand pace has done fantastic, but Indian bowlers are struggling. Why? They're just not suited to it as much. Siraj would have been the better choice. Mr. Jekyll, as usual, poor swing bowling from India somewhat. Do you think India winning WTC will be a big flip for cricket journalists all over compared to if they do not? Yeah. I can see that. BJ Watling class, do you think the middle order will settle until, unlike the Indian middle order? We're going to wait and see, aren't we? We're going to wait and see. I would argue that I think that New Zealand is slightly weaker in the batting line than India. I'm sorry, I'm thinking that. Well, bowling wise, they're pretty even based on the way they play. So it's an interesting analogy. Okay. Watling class, do you think the middle order will settle under? Let's hope so. Even New Zealand pace that don't fancy, but bowling struggle. We've talked about it already. Match can turn around. Yeah, match can turn around. Right? It turned around quite severely to New Zealand. It can do that to India. In their favour, of course it can. I don't want to make it out to be one way at all. All right, guys. Match can turn around tomorrow. It certainly can. Do you think spinners likely to have a role in that? Certainly the last day. If they get they get on the pitch, they'll be able to make some effect. Again, they would have preferred Lords or perhaps the Oval, but otherwise they're seasoned good bowlers. All right, we're waiting on a few people. They're not coming, so that's fine. We can look at perhaps we can end this show. I think we've done a pretty good job. Shashank Shekhar Bobby is not here. It makes a difference. Bobby would have made some difference, certainly, but he just wasn't. He was just outside the chosen team. All right, guys. I'm feeling it. I think we've talked about enough. The situation is that we'll have a session before the game tomorrow. I'll have a session before. We'll have that. I'm going to hope for some good guests on that. We might have the likes of Ben Cutting with his lovely wife. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it'll be interesting. All right. Cricket is an unpredictable game. Anything can happen. I need to take 3 more wickets early in the hour. Game will be changed. And exactly. New Zealand have to make a 50-run lead. I reckon 100. Given the weather forecast, what do you think will play a crucial role tomorrow? Seamers or spinners? Seamers. Spinners, it looks like they're going to have less and less effect through this match. When do you think they will revisit bad light rules? As players could easily have continued with floodlights. This is an age-old question. If they start getting grounds which are dark lit, they may think about that. We might have to throw a few kangaroo balls in there to the crowd to try and bluff them in the whole thing, but otherwise it's going to be a hard decision. Hopefully they'll make the right decision. I'm pretty sure that you'll find that India and Melbourne will have Melbourne and certainly Brisbane. They may have the Gabba, I'm not sure, but the ACT component of it. And I'll be in a 5A in a nice white top with a nice logo as well. So, okay, given the weather forecast, what do you think will play a crucial role tomorrow? Seamers or spinners? Well, if there's no play tomorrow, that's okay. If they do, seamers are going to be the ones contributing the most. Get some sleep, Norman. Yeah, I think I do need some sleep. It's now pretty late, and I think I've exhausted my discussion with you. It's been an hour and 18 minutes. And good night. I think I'm getting a bit sleepy. Yes, spinners could have a bowl at least with floodlights. Of course they could, but it's not the way that it's operating. All right, guys, I'm going to finish up there. Please view, like, and share the posts, and share as much as you can to your groups. Get people to subscribe, and then the channel will grow, and we'll all grow, and we'll get more interesting people on. The more I can satisfy their needs, the more I'll be able to do that. So that's crucial for this whole thing. And at this stage in the game, we are able to do much more. So, all right, guys, you deserve rest on. Take care. See you tomorrow. All right, guys. If you like and share, subscribe. My Twitter handle, my Instagram handle. Subscribe, share in your groups, your WhatsApp groups, your Messenger, and we'll talk tomorrow. This is Norman Kosnick saying goodbye to my audience, which is growing every time. I'm very, very proud of that. More guests tomorrow. Take care, guys.